When Governor Bill Lee floated a Hail Mary firearms proposal in the waning days of session, Republicans, particularly in the House, pretty much immediately shot it down.
I don't see the will of the Senate or the House before we close out tomorrow to be able to get their minds around a 15-page bill.
Lee coined it an enhanced order of protection, which is essentially a modified red flag law to separate weapons from dangerous people.
The General Assembly will ultimately decide which one of those pass, but I feel confident because of the engagement and the work and the efforts. I feel confident that we will have a substantive legislation brought forth and that will make Tennessee a safer place as a result of that.
Since session, that rejection has only grown fiercer. Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton says you may see some gun reform, but not the way you may be thinking.
Right now, criminals who are felons cannot own a weapon, but they can have as much ammunition in their house as they so choose. And so for a felon to own ammunition, you might see us go that route.
In terms of the governor's proposal, nothing has changed.
As far as the enhanced orders of protection, red flag laws, yeah, you're not going to see us go down that road.
Moreover, the Tennessee Firearms Association, which has donated to more than 20 Republicans in the legislature, has been pushing a red flag down campaign, even though top Republicans seemingly have already decided it won't pass.
While there are some Republicans, we've got 74 in the House out of 99, clearly saying it's a non-starter. We don't know that we have enough saying that.
TFA Executive Director John Harris did point out a few Republicans by name who say they support some small changes.
Lieutenant Governor McNally says he likes them. He supports the red flag law. I've not seen him back off of that. I have the Senate caucus leader saying we can't pass it if we call it a red flag law, so we've got to rebrand it. That gives me pause, okay? We have House leaders like Jeremy Faison and making statements about supporting some form of gun control.
Democrats can argue until they're metaphorically blue in the face, and they have.
Just continue with your thoughts in prayer. You know, that's about the same value that coming down here to check a box will do.
In the politically charged environment that we're in a lot of cases, you know, even if it's a good idea, those good ideas will be brushed to the side.
We're under a constant barrage of attacks, so we find ourselves playing defense a lot.
But at the crux of it, Republicans control virtually every piece of the state. So whatever happens, or does not happen, is on their shoulders.
It's never been this bad. And I really attribute it to being drunk with power.
Is there a chance some gun control passes? Of course, especially if Lieutenant Governor McNally really does help in the Senate.
I support the governor, and I think his proposal was on target.
But with the lack of help in the House, it seems almost doomed to fail. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
I've gotten many questions related to red flag law. Everybody wants to talk about the red flag law, and from a Republican's perspective, very concerned about that being brought. So if you look at the governor's call, there's I believe it's the 12th point within that call that lays out a very tight section related to an orders of protection, quote unquote, red flag law. Specific to the language the governor brought in April. It would allow only for that. It's so specific, it would allow only for that. But it's important for viewers to know that the governor did not make that the red flag or the ERPO proposal. He did not make that part of his legislative agenda. If you look at the 7 points in the legislation he's going to bring and push, that was not included in that. One is specifically related to juvenile mental health information. Right now, there's a gap in the system where if the juvenile has been adjudicated mentally defective or under conservatorship or has been voluntarily committed, some of the things that as an adult would keep you from possessing a weapon or buying a weapon. Right now, the way the system is, there's a firewall there. And when a juvenile turns 18, their record is basically cleared and they can buy a weapon. So after working with TBI, working with the AG, some outside groups, we crafted legislation that would push that information forward to allow the TICS system, our reporting, our system that we do our background checks through for weapons. It would allow that information to be pushed forward, so that way if a juvenile that has mental health issues, mental health illness, when they turn 18, they would not be able to buy a weapon. So I've got, and then secondly, I'll be carrying a piece of legislation referred to as duty to report. And right now, if a healthcare practitioner, medical practitioner is with a patient and the patient makes a specific threat of violence, the healthcare practitioner is required to report that. The concern has been there is not a requirement in there for general reporting, meaning if that it's just they're treating someone and it's not they make a threat, but it's not a specific threat. Technically, they don't have to report that. And so we'll take a step to address that. Another area I've really been working on and have made I think we've made some big steps forward related to reimbursements, Medicaid reimbursements for our healthcare providers across the state. Staffing is a significant problem. And right now, just with that Medicaid reimbursement, they are simply not making enough to be able to provide the level of service needed and to be able to stay in business and to be able to continue to effectively treat patients who have mental illness.
The call of the special session doesn't allow for anything related to gun violence to be brought up. And it's distressing to say that you're going to pass a bill, or maybe we'll pass a bill on safe storage, but there will be no penalty. Are we going to pass a law against robbery and not have a penalty? Oh, we suggest you don't do that. That's ridiculous. This is being controlled by the NRA and the Tennessee Firearms Association. And instead of really addressing gun violence head on, they're talking about increasing penalties and things for juveniles. This is not what we're talking about when we're talking about gun violence and these shootings. You know, what they're talking about was part of their agenda that they tried to pass last session, but because of lawyers and the judges who hated these bills, they wouldn't pass them in regular session. They didn't get through committee, but they're putting them on this docket for the special session. This is really more about them trying to pass the part of the agenda they couldn't get through during session than it is addressing gun violence. But they're going to couch it all as if they're talking about safety for young people. That's not what it's about. We need to talk about seriously providing mental health counseling in our schools and for our youth and for adults as well, and increasing our ability to serve those folks. And we need to seriously talk about things that keep the guns out of dangerous people.